Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I spent 3 hours at the dentist this morning. How are you?
Wow, that's a lot. That is a long time. Was it like 2 hours of recovery or just, hours of work?
Getting a crown replaced, and a bunch of it was just like waiting for the new crown to be made, which dental technology has come a long way in the last 10 years or so. Because it's just, they take a picture of your tooth and then they make a 3D model and they're like moving it around. And I'm like, am I in a spaceship? This is incredible. And also, I'm tired of being here. Can we get this moving, please? So that was my morning. How was your morning?
I got up relatively early, like by 9.
That's early, is it?
Like I said, it's relative. It's all relative. But I also had to get up because, we thought we were going to get Ryan Day at some point on Tuesday. And I didn't want to sleep through that. That would be poor form.
And then it turns out that the some point on Tuesday is actually on Wednesday, which is sort of a point on Tuesday. It's like 3,600 hours on Tuesday. So
exactly. It's all right, though. It gives us opportunity today to just answer a whole bunch of do a Q&A podcast, actually a couple of them. That way there will be something this week for people. It is a holiday weekend. So let's remember that, people. You can't be demanding content all of the time. Not every single day this week, okay?
Tony is on a glide path. He has shut the engines down. He is on a very glide path down to that airport of Christmas. So don't once those engines shut down, you cannot pull the nose up. You're going one direction. It's just a matter of landing the plane smoothly. That's what we're here to try and do today and tomorrow.
In fact, these Q&A shows may be more Q than A's. We just be like, yep, good question. What's next? And then just try to get enough time out of it to where people don't feel ripped off. Like they'll be like, it sure felt like a half hour. I don't know if there's anything said, but it felt long.
I didn't pay anything for this, and I'm still not sure if I got any bang for my buck.
Well, then we should probably get started.
All right. First one from our buddy at Chip Minnick. Any word if Ohio State will be wearing the scarlet jersey or the white jersey for the Sugar Bowl versus Clemson? Which team is the home team and which is the visitor? That is always determined by the home team being the higher seeded team, and then the home team gets its choice of jerseys. So I have not seen anything official. But Clemson is the home team as the number 2 seed, which means that they will very likely choose to wear their orange jersey. So Ohio State would be in white. That's most likely the case, but I don't think that's been official yet. That
would be my assumption. And the last 2 times that Ohio State was in the Sugar Bowl, Tom, which of course we know were when
against Alabama in 2014, as everyone knows.
Everyone knows that.
Also against Arkansas in the 2010 season, which never happened. Yes.
And both of those games, Ohio State wore their whites. So I guess they're 1-0 asterisk in the 2 games.
And what color is sugar?
White. That is right.
Unless it's brown.
It's
brown. So yes.
Right.
And Ohio State does not have a brown jersey. So yes, they have to wear white by law.
Not anymore. Not since the 1884 season or something like that. They're orange and brown.
Next one. Is that true? I think they were
black and Princeton colors or something.
That's black and orange.
Right. There you go.
Not brown. Yes.
Right. But it's all black and white back then.
Yes, that's true. Next one from at Brock 774-11489. What do you think the odds are that Day and Wilson implement a run heavy / play action package against Clemson?
I think the way they are running right now, if you're not run heavy for most of this game, then you might be doing it wrong. We've seen every single game this season, their average yards per carry has increased. Now, I don't expect it to get above the 9.1 or whatever it was against Northwestern, but things are going pretty well right now. You know how we talked about before the game, the Northwestern game, maybe you throw to run, you throw to open up the running game. I don't know, maybe there's some of that, but I think if the run is working against Clemson's defense, which has given up some yards at times this year to not great teams, if Ohio State can establish that, then you get that run going, you suck in the safeties, and then you take shots to Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. That seems like seems like the ideal game plan. It's just executing it.
Yeah, and I think that they have the offensive line to be able to run the ball this year. I think, and if Trey Sermon is anywhere close to, if Trey Sermon is 75% of what he was against Northwestern, they're probably moving the ball reasonably well. I let me just take the under on the 9.1 yards per carry. That's probably not going to happen. If they run for 6 yards a carry against Clemson, that will be like, yep, I would project Ohio State to win at that point. I mean, because that gives you a pretty good sense that you're controlling the line of scrimmage. If you're controlling the line of scrimmage like that, you get a pretty good chance to win. That's probably Ohio State's best way to move the ball, I'm going to guess, on the ground. And it also has the added benefit of keeping Clemson's offense off the field, because I think Ohio State's going to want to keep Clemson's offense off the field as much as they possibly can.
Yeah, the concern there is plus Justin Fields' thumb. He says it's going to be fine. I wonder, though, if it's not fine, will Justin Fields do like the Ronnie Lott thing?
Just cut it off?
Exactly.
I'm going to guess that would not be super fantastic for his NFL draft prospects, so I'm going to guess not. But
I don't want my players thinking about the NFL when they're trying to win a national championship.
What was Ronnie Lott thinking of when he had his tip of his pinky amputated?
The NFL.
There you go. Next one from @Ryan from CBus. How do I make the elf on the shelf go away without my kid getting upset? Do you have thoughts on that? I'm guessing you have less elf on a shelf experience than I do.
Well, I would say you do it like you know how when a bad person kidnaps somebody and the ransom note says, "Do not get the police involved."
Mm-hmm.
Like, just leave a note saying, "Do not tell your parents or else somebody will get hurt." That way you can let the kids down easy that, yes, the elf is gone, but also, like, then they won't come to you upset, because they know that if they do, the parents will be like physically hurt. And so I think that will ground them emotionally and allow them to, we'll just have to move beyond the elf on the shelf, because if I say anything, I could lose a parent.
That's what I think you want to, the mental association you want to breed in your kids is Christmas, beloved Christmas figure equals murder of loved one. That is definitely going to build a healthy, mentally well-balanced child growing up. That kid will definitely be a great parent eventually. Fantastic parent. Yeah. No, I had a whole answer ready, but there's no way I can possibly top that one. That's the best possible solution of all.
I also think that the person that the child then grows into, as you said, what kind of adult do they grow into? I think this is an adult that grows into, how like your TV is like the centerpiece of your living room or whatever. It's, it's the focus and it's there. I think the elf becomes the centerpiece and everybody has to know where it is, because, Tom, if the elf goes missing and you can't find it and you have to seek help, you might be putting somebody in danger. So you have to always know where this elf is.
I'm picturing like Liam Neeson, like on the phone with someone in someone with an Eastern European accent. I will find you. Yeah, that's taken for Buddy the Elf has gone missing. Yeah, that's Christmas got dark. All right, let's see if we can pull out of the Christmas spiral with something a little more uplifting. At OSU Phil 95, do you reckon there will be any seniors who decide to return for their COVID shirt, not covert, COVID shirt, senior season? That was very hard to say.
Do you have an answer?
Yes, someone will return. I don't know who, though. I mean, I'm kind of going through in my head right now.
Do you think Demario McCall will return?
I think Demario McCall will probably play somewhere. I don't know if it'll be Ohio State. Choices have been made, friends. Choices have been made. And it's probably not a super fantastic thing for you and the judgments which you have displayed, that when a video leaks, my first thought is, I wonder if it was Demario. Like, that was like, if you're the first name that pops into my mind and then you're the person, like, that's that's a thing. So that's I think he'll be back somewhere. I think let's see. I mean, Justin Hilliard is probably going to go somewhere, turn pro. Tuff Borland is already in the Senior Bowl. Pete Werner will go. Jonathan Cooper will go. I mean, I feel like someone will come back, but I don't.
Marcus Williamson said he's
Marcus.
coming back.
Marcus Williamson is definitely. Marcus Williamson definitely is one that's a definitely yes.
Bradley Robinson wasn't part of the senior day stuff. Maybe he comes back.
Yep, that's true.
And really, those are the only two that I can think of. And Urban Ryan Day a few weeks back mentioned that a couple of guys didn't want to go through that process in terms of the senior day videos and stuff. But it was more than just those two, because we know Haskell Garrett didn't, and a couple of others. But I looks like more and more unlikely that Haskell Garrett will be back. Would be a boon to have him, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be a bunch of guys coming back as seniors again.
I mean, either at that point, if you are a starter at Ohio State, you're probably getting drafted somewhere in the NFL. That's just kind of, and if you are not a starter at Ohio State by the time you're a senior or a fifth-year senior, then it's probably not going to happen. So then you're probably either moving on to another school where you might be a starter, or you're ready to go pro in something other than sports, as the NCAA has said in the past. At J_R_K3, have you or Tom ever asked a current or former player what it's like knowing you need to bounce back after a poor performance? Is that something coachable or a natural ability to put it behind you and move forward?
I think that is a key to coaching. So it's definitely something that is coachable, but also the natural ability to move on is necessary. I think it's a combination of both, because if a coach is good at getting you past it, but you are not good at moving past it, then there's pushing and pulling, and it's like, in the grocery store door, push pull, and you're getting it wrong. And it's better when both are going in the same direction. And I think I don't know if this topic comes up a lot following bad losses. How do you bounce back and stuff like that? And these guys are so conditioned to keep moving forward. And a lot of times, like on message boards and Twitter, you see fans taking it harder than players. That's how the fans view it, that they're taking it harder than players. But players got to keep practicing. You've got another game coming up, and it's when things are still tangible the next day, and you've got to continue to work and play and practice. You have to move on. You have to move past it, and it's not something that you can start to get past the next Saturday, like with fans, when you're like, okay, at least now today we have a game and you can get back on the winning side. The players have been trying to get back on the winning side since Sunday. And but I do think it's both coachable and it's both a natural thing for the players. I mean, especially corners who can lose from play to play, and I've never lost anything.
Yeah, and that's the position that is kind of the classic example here is corner, where, I mean, Kerry Combs just tells those guys you have to have a short memory. You can't, if you get beat on something, you can't be thinking about the next time you're out there, because you're just going to get, you're going to get beat again because you're still thinking about that. Don't let that one play beat you twice, basically. So that's kind of the classic example. But I mean, Ohio State has a whole sports psychologist staff that deals a lot with this, dealing with the pressures, dealing with the the disappointments, things aren't going your way. How do you turn that into a positive thing? They talk a lot about, after a win, hey, we're going to enjoy this one tonight, and tomorrow we're on to fill in the blank. There's a certain amount of that on the flip side as well, where it's like, all right, you can think about this, you can learn from this, but you got to move on. You can't be moping around on Tuesday about what happened the previous Saturday, because that'll get you beat the following Saturday. So it's the same, kind of the macro version of the micro thing that I just talked about with the corners.
We talked to Chris Holtman on Tuesday, and I asked him because they have had a very difficult had some difficult non-conference opponents, and playing in the Big Ten, which is the best conference in America, the toughest conference in America. And how do you balance pushing the players in order to get them ready for the NCAA tournament versus not crushing them during a pandemic? And he said you think about it all the time, but the players wanted to be playing during the holidays. They voted. They decided, yeah, let's play. Let's do look for games that we can find. And so it's like the players want to play, and that's something that also you can put something bad behind you when you want more. And so that's part of just being an elite athlete at an elite university or program at Power 5 title contending type school. You can't just be defeated by one loss, and there's so much more that goes into it, and you put so much work into it that for one loss to just sidetrack you completely, that's more weakness than I think players at this level would have.
Yeah. All right, next one from @Dane Dillion. Seriously though, which non-Fields quarterback gives Ohio State the best chance against Clemson should Fields need to exit? I mean, I think the coaching staff has already told you the answer to this, because there has been one backup quarterback that has taken a snap in a meaningful situation, and that was CJ Stroud against Michigan State when Fields went out kind of very briefly. He was the next guy in. That tells me, and then he was the one who came in at the end of that game as well, the first one off the bench after Fields. After Ohio State was up comfortably, Stroud was the next guy in. That tells me Stroud's the next guy in. If Fields had to come out for a play in the Sugar Bowl, CJ Stroud is the guy who's coming in to replace him.
Here's okay, Tom. Say Justin Fields, and this is all hypothetical. Don't worry about what we're talking about. We're just talking to talk. Justin Fields leaves the game in the first quarter. CJ Stroud has to play the rest of the game. Over under 44.5% completion percentage.
I'm going to say over, but I think that's mostly because they're going to be so run heavy at that point that Clemson will have really sold out and be going after the run, and the throws they're going to be giving him are going to be real easy. You're not going to be asking him to make any complex reads there. It's going to be like, keep it real simple, try and do stuff off of the run, run, play action kind of stuff. So I would go over 44%, but I mean, if you see that is probably not a great indication that things are going to go great for Ohio State against Clemson.
Over under passing yards in those final three quarters for CJ Stroud, 167.5.
Under.
Really?
I was all ready for you to say 100, and I was going to go over, but yeah, 167. I would probably go under. I think they're probably leaning so heavily on that run at that point that maybe you hit a real long one, but they're probably asking him to make a lot of short throws. Clemson's probably sucking up real close to the line because they recognize they're not going to want him to have to make a lot of long throws. So maybe you hit one over the top at that point. But
what about the Dwayne Haskins 2017 Michigan factor?
Mm-hmm. Is Clemson 2017 Michigan?
That's not what I'm asking you, Tom. Mm-hmm. What about the factor?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that factor was that Michigan team wasn't that great. That might have been something that needs to factor into this whole decision and this whole conversation. That's a thing. That's a thing we probably should weigh in here. As
what does the defense have to do when we're talking about an offensive success? What does the defense have to do with anything when we're talking about an offensive, attack being successful? Nothing, Tom.
No, nothing. I mean, some might argue that the defense is trying to prevent the offense from being successful. So a good defense, which is good at playing defense, where its goal is to prevent the offense from being successful, that might have something to do with their success rate in preventing the offense from being successful. Those people are idiots. Never listen to them. It is all about the court. That's it.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure I'm not breaking new ground here, but if Justin Fields goes down in the first quarter and does not return, you can probably go ahead and make plans for the weekend of January 11th. You will probably not have an Ohio State game to watch that weekend at that point.
However, Tom, say again, all hypothetical, Justin Fields goes down in the first quarter with just a little thumb sprain. CJ Stroud leads them to a victory. The thumb is healthy for the national championship game. Do you dare put CJ Stroud back on that bench? Do you dare?
Well, let's see. How did that go in 2015? They didn't put the then version of CJ Stroud back on the bench. and everything worked out great. So no, I think you absolutely follow the 2015. Yeah, absolutely. That's that. Although I get, maybe it depends, because Cardale Jones beat Alabama, but then Braxton or JT Barrett beat Notre Dame. So maybe it depends on who you're playing in that final game.
That's a good point, Tom. If your head coach makes his decision that way, shouldn't they be fired on the spot?
Might be. I was going to say that's probably a pretty big buyout, but that might be something that's for cause. So yeah.
Ryan, why did you decide to go with CJ Stroud? Well, if you look back in history,
I mean, at that point, he's probably getting arrested for his decision making, and then you can be like, "Well, see, he just had a felony. Like that's also can't employ that guy."
That's the first time Justin Fields has ever been compared to JT Barrett, so that's neat.
Definitely two names that have never come up on any message board in the same sense. Nope, not once. Not a once.
Oh, speaking of, go ahead.
Speaking of, at info 348-78048, has Fields regressed in going through his progressions?
You know, I don't know that it's regression. It's when your top two progressions are like Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Maybe you don't use the muscle of going to the third progression a lot. And then when you don't have Chris Olave, then that creates concern, and you're not looking as long as at that first progression. If it's Olave, then you go back to Wilson who is covered, and then you're not as accustomed to hitting that third one. And we saw just a lot of off balance late passes on looking, and then dumps, and didn't have his feet under him. So it was odd to watch, and it wasn't all just the thumb. And it's probably something that Clemson defensive coordinator Brent Venables is going to look at, and it will be interesting to see all of the different angles that they have people coming from. But also, there's the thought that Justin Fields can almost create his own pressure just by having his top two guys covered.
Yeah, I mean, what was concerning to me about Justin Fields on Saturday against Northwestern was, some of the inaccurate throws. Like if thumb was an issue, like okay, you can kind of write some of that off with that. There were a bunch of times there was a 2-point conversion where Garrett Wilson was covered and Luke Farrell was just like further out. I don't know if they showed this on TV. I was sitting in that end zone right there, shooting Garrett Wilson right in front of me with the ball going through Garrett Wilson's hands, and he was pretty tightly covered. And I took the camera away from my face, and there's Luke Farrell like right out here, out by the sidelines, 10 yards wide, no one around him. It was just like, oh, well, that probably wasn't the right choice. You probably need to go at least one step further out on your progression there. And the tight ends did not have a reception on Saturday. Like that I think answers that alone, because there were several times that you saw tight ends running open, crossing routes or whatever, and the ball never went there. That's a little bit of a red flag to me. And I think part of that is Fields not having his binky in Olave. If Olave and Wilson are the guys you're going to, when one of them's not there, that's going to throw you off. The offensive line was fine, though. I mean, he did not have a ton of pressure. He had time, but there were times that guys were open and he just didn't throw the ball on the time. I mean, it all looked off. And that's if there's another game like that, Justin Fields is not coming back next year. But if he has another game like that, like you're going to have people saying like, maybe he should come back and try. He's very clearly not going to be the number one pick in next year's draft. Like that's going to be Trevor Lawrence. But if he's number two, yeah, I mean, you're never going to turn down that money. But I mean, he's looked deeply uncomfortable a couple times this year. I mean, he looked deeply uncomfortable against Indiana. He looked deeply uncomfortable against Northwestern. He did not have a great game against Clemson last year. There's an argument to be made that he should come back for another year. He's not going to come back for another year. So it's a purely academic argument, but there's an argument to be made that he should come back for another year.
No, I would agree.
Next one from Mark _Condon. Any chance Harry Miller gets benched if he doesn't play well early on against Clemson? No. Clemson's defensive line is way better than Northwestern's. Yes. Who is his backup? And that was Matt Jones, who came in against Michigan State. He's the guard who is a top 50, I think, prospect overall in the nation from Erasmus Hall High School in Brooklyn. That's the same school that produced Curtis Samuel, among other guys. So he would be the next guy to come in. But, I mean, I don't think they're going to mess with something in the middle of a do or die game. And he hasn't been, like, Harry Miller's been much better the last couple of weeks, I feel like. Did he grade out as a champion this week? I think he did.
Yeah, I don't remember. I can find that for you. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll look it up. You share your thoughts then.
Yeah, I don't think you mess up what's going well right now. You've got an offensive line that is clearing the way against everybody. Even though, yeah, there's been some mixing and matching due to COVID and stuff. And yes, Harry Miller does need to clean some things up. He did.
All 5 offensive linemen graded as champions. So whether you think Harry Miller played well or not, the coaching staff thinks Harry Miller played well.
Right, and the holding calls or like stall a drive or whatever, it's always going to be glaring. But also they rush for 399 yards, and that's not something an offensive line does when they have a weak link, like a glaring weak link. Now, there's always a weakest link, but that doesn't make them a weak link.
Yes, just because you are the weakest link does not mean they're going to say goodbye. That's not. Right. This is not 1999 NBC primetime anymore. That's not how it works. So, yes, another topical reference. Here we are.
I was going to leave it alone.
At Zonabuck1, in the spirit of Christmas, what non-football related gift would Dabo benefit from the most this holiday season?
I will say I think he could use like a bucket of humility, maybe. And I don't know what he would do with the bucket, but just, a little bit of reminder that you were once a wide receivers coach who was almost fired as a head coach, and maybe just appreciate that you are not Nick Saban.
He beat the tar out of Nick Saban the last time they played. So, I mean, that's maybe he's better than Nick Saban. Counterpoint.
He is now.
Yeah, I mean, there is a certain value, and if you have been on Twitter.com before, you recognize this. There's a certain value in just sometimes sitting one out. Like, you don't need to throw yourself in the middle of everything. You don't need to make yourself the central. One of the great lines is, a good life goal is to never be the main character on Twitter for a day. Like, don't keep putting yourself in positions where you turn into the main character on Twitter for a day, even if it's just the main character in, one major state, one major American metropolitan area or state. Do not put yourself in a position where some jerk like me can title a podcast, "What's the deal with fill in your name here," and get 1 trillion hits on YouTube because everyone's like, "What is the deal with that guy anyway?" You can set one out, which, boy, that makes a smooth transition to our next one from Uter Zucker. I know how to speak German. Umlauts on both the first names and last name. What's up with Dabo voting the Bucs 11th? Well, here's the principle. I had Matt Conley, Clemson beat writer, on the Morning Scoop on Tuesday, right? Today's Tuesday. Yes. He just said, that's Dabo. Dabo, as of 2018, was filling out his own ballot. He watches stuff. This is not like normally when something like this comes up, the coach goes, like the SID filled it out. I don't even pay attention to it. Dabo, as of 2018, talked about the fact that he watched a ton of football, and he took pride in getting up and setting his alarm and filling that thing out to get it in on time. And so that is really him. Dabo this year has also been pretty outspoken about the fact that teams that don't play as much should not receive as much credit as teams that have played a bunch of games. Now, that contradicts what he said back in August. Back in August, he just said, no one knows how much anyone's going to get to play. We'll see how it goes. Now that his team has played a whole bunch of games, now having played a whole bunch of games makes you a better team and means you should be ranked higher than teams who have not played as many games, even if that's not necessarily their decision. Even that was the conference, and then the fact that other teams tested positive for COVID, that still needs to get held against you. And that's fine. I mean, reminds me of The Big Lebowski, where it's like, well, at least it's an ethos. Say what you will about Dabo voting Ohio State 11th, at least it's an ethos. So, I mean, again, like, it's fine. Like, that's what he believes. And, Matt said, like, I mean, Matt has covered him a heck of a lot more than I have. And Matt said, like, that's who he is. He's like a genuine person. He is not, he's not just a complete phony. And that's what he believes. And, that then goes very much against the, why don't you sit one out every once in a while, champ, advice that I would have given him in the last question.
It is interesting. And I have a couple thoughts. One is, that this is getting back to Ohio State, and obviously you don't care, but I guess it tells me that the 12th team played 5 games. Like, is he just voting on games you've played? And I guess he did stick to his guns by putting Ohio State 11th. But if all you're basing this on is number of games played, that's a pretty ridiculous metric. And to think that, fortunately, coaches poll doesn't reward any national champions or anything like that when you've got this kind of thought process involved. And it's just one of those things where he is, I guess the good thing is that he's confident enough to, I guess, not kowtow, or like, it would be hypocritical if he had Ohio State 4 right now, I guess, after saying what he had said so long. But also, it's the almost the human thing to do, to vote to the top 4 in the top 4, that sort of thing, rather than just completely slap everybody in the face and say, the committee may think you're good, but I don't.
Well, and I'm going to update a couple of things that you said there. First of all, the coaches poll does vote for the national champion. I mean, there is, but the way it works is the college football playoff champion, whoever wins that national championship game, is automatically the coaches poll. So then he could, if Ohio State beats Clemson and goes to the national championship game but loses, he could still vote Ohio State, 9th or something, and be like, well, they didn't play that many games. There's also, if that's what you believe, that's what you believe, and that's fine. Like everyone has their opinions on this season, and that's fine. But it is a little then disingenuous to come out and say, oh man, this is an incredible Ohio State team. Like, this is,
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna, you got to have a certain amount of commitment to the bit. Like, if you're gonna vote them 11th, then you got to say, like, he's talking about how incredible they are and what an advantage it is to have only played 6 games. And it's like, well, then if they're so incredible and they have this huge advantage, why are they 11th? Like, you gotta kind of pick one there. And I am all for, like, if people just want to go like the full Cobra Kai, just like, yeah, man, just put on that black hat and really be a troll. And, this has taken the form of college football official Twitter accounts just absolutely dragging other teams, just, Illinois thanking Nebraska for bringing back football so that they could beat them, that kind of stuff. Like, if you want to do that, like, that's hilarious, but, commit to the bit then, and don't go, oh, no, I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry. You guys are actually super fantastic. And, like, do it or don't. If you want to be the dude in the black hat, that's fine. Like, those are the personalities that make this sport super interesting and super entertaining. Like, I am all for the Lane Kiffins, or back in the day, the Steve Spurrier's constant digs on Tennessee at SEC Media Days. Like, man, that is the stuff that makes the world go round. And we need more of those, not less. But, we
got Bret Bielema back, so that's good.
You want to do 45 minutes on the Bret Bielema hire? I have some thoughts.
But in terms of the Dabo's vote, like, if Ohio State is at such an advantage, then shouldn't they be number 1? If they are this advantaged team, that it's unfair for everybody else. Gosh, usually that's the team that's number 1. If they have the advantage over everybody else, that usually means that they should be number 1 rather than number 11. And so that's, it's, you're right. It's the Dan Mullen thing where it's always somebody else's fault. He's, using both sides to his advantage. And I guess we should not be surprised. Bret Bielema, I'm glad he is back. My favorite part about Bret Bielema, and I don't know if it's going to be the same way at Illinois, but he would always accuse Ohio State of cheating, whether it was under Jim Tressel or Urban Meyer, and then Barry Alvarez would have to come out and correct him, and then Bret Bielema would have to apologize. And it was like it was something that was done, I don't know, like every couple of every year at Big Ten Media Days, and then he would have to apologize because all of the coaches are there, all of the ADs are there, and you can go get confirmation, or you can ask somebody about it. Like a couple years ago, when James Franklin implied that Ohio State was doing something shady, and then you go run right over at Urban. Hey, Urban, James Franklin said this. Oh, he said what? And then you go back to James Franklin. James, we asked Urban about this, and he said this, and James like, oh no, and then you go back to Urban. It's like, oh no, we're all fine now. We talked. But with Bret Bielema, he would always have to apologize for stuff that he said, and it's good to have him back. I don't know if he's going to be as brazen. He said he's still a confident guy, but I don't know how cocky you can be at Illinois.
Yeah, I do. I mean, of all the things that I like about this, I like the fact that he has a tattoo of his alma mater, which is one Big 10 North, Big 10 West team. He's best known for coaching another Big 10 West team, and now he's coaching a third Big 10 West team. It is wild. Yeah, I don't love the hire. I think it's a win the initial press conference, lots of attention, and then is he your best option? I mean, who would you have hired ahead of him? Anyone?
Well, they've gone the young coach way before, and it hasn't necessarily worked out. But that maybe was the best young coach to hire, in Tim Beckman from the MAC, and then you're like, can't go back to the MAC, even though everybody has gone to the MAC and pretty much gotten somebody out of there good, and they could have done that. I was always a proponent. I was always saying, hey, go get Mike Leach. Obviously, that wasn't on the table, this time around, but go get somebody to make some kind of either. You still got to build like the culture and the foundation. At least Bret Bielema has been able to sustain a culture, so I think he can sustain Lovie Smith's culture pretty well.
Anytime you can keep things just on that nice steady level from where you just fired a guy, yeah, I mean, you've got to do it. I don't get it, man. Like, I don't get hiring the retread when there are successful options out there. There are successful options who are going to say yes. Lance Leipold, man. Lance Leipold at Wisconsin Whitewater, 109-6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 national championships in 8 seasons. And he was the runner-up one other year. And he came into Buffalo, which has been historically one of the worst programs in all of FBS. 5-7, 2-10. And all of a sudden 6-6. They went 4-4 in the MAC in 2017. 10-4, won the East in 2018. 8-5 in 2019, won the Bahamas Bowl. 2010, 5-1, 5-0 in the MAC, and they won the East, going to the Camellia Bowl. I mean, that's good. That is someone who has shown that he can take a program that is just nowhere, turn it into a consistent winner. That is hiring. Lance Leipold is 56 years old. You have Lance Leipold for 10 years because he's not going anywhere. Like, if he goes to Illinois, by the time he's gets the program to a spot where it would be like, oh man, look at what he's done. He's 61 years old, and no one's hiring the 61-year-old guy for the next level up of like high Power 5 job. So you get your version of Frank Solich right there. What Frank Solich has done at Ohio University, Lance Leipold could have been that for Illinois. That is not the big name hire. That's not the wow, win the press conference hire. That's just the wow, Illinois is winning 7 games all of a sudden every year. And sometimes they win 8 games. And maybe one year everything falls into place and they do have that 10-2 season where they at least make the Big Ten championship game. Bielema seems like, I mean, you look at what happened with him at Arkansas. It was the same thing. It was like, oh man, Bret Bielema, oh man, he's going to, and then just, right. I mean, they just went, I don't know if they ever had a winning record. They were just, every year it felt like 6-6. And like by the end of the year, it was like, oh man, look at Arkansas. They're coming on strong. Wait till next year. And then they go 6-6 again. And then eventually you get fired. that's a job where I would have gone with Chris Creighton from Eastern Michigan. I would have gone with Lance Leipold. Like there are guys in the MAC that would have been better fits there. Bret Bielema is someone who I just like. I don't see them ever making the Big Ten championship game with Bret Bielema. I think Lance Leipold could have gotten them there, or at least like multiple 7-8 win seasons. I don't see Bielema doing that.
It's weird that Illinois views themselves as having to go get the known quantity, even though when Lovie Smith was hired, a known quantity, everybody looked at it like, well, that's not a good hire. Like there's what is good about this? Yes, he almost won a Super Bowl. So like, what does he know about, he was in college a long time ago. What kind of recruiter is he? What kind of, ability to build a program and a culture? And now it's almost like they're doing it again with Bret Bielema. Yes, everybody knows him, but it's like, putting spinner rims on a Ford Tempo, but only a couple of the rims actually spin. Some are stuck and one's broken. And it's like, well, it looks okay from this side, but if you go look at the other side, like it's a complete mess, and it's still just a Ford Tempo. And that's kind of what Illinois is. And it's, either, as you said, you go with Lance Leipold, because I always say you need a lifer at these Big Ten West schools to really turn them into a Wisconsin. And I think Nebraska has that in Scott Frost, provided he doesn't get himself fired. But at least Leipold, like you said, he's already at the point almost where you're too old to hire. And if you give him time to build something, that's all he does. And then he sustains it. Or you get one of these young guys who will just, as soon as they can move on, they will. It's not like Tim Beckman would still be there if he was winning. He'd be, Texas or whoever would have him. Bret Bielema, like what happens if they win 9-10 games the next 2 years and Kirk Ferentz retires and, he wants to, I'm saying, I guess this would be a good problem for Illinois to have. But I also don't think it would happen.
Yeah, I mean, but if they win, I don't think it takes 9 or 10 games a season for them to do that. I think if they win 5 games and then they win 7 games, that might be enough to get Bielema the Iowa job. And I don't really think that's going to happen. I think that's going to be a long build. I don't know that he's going to have the patience for a long build either. He's not. He seems like someone who's going to cut a corner at some point, and maybe they have that one season where it's like, oh look, they're 8-4, and then right back to 3-9 the year after that. This just feels like the poor man's Ron Zook hire, where it's like, well, I mean, Ron Zook did get them there that one year, got him to the Rose Bowl, which I mean that took took some doing to get them there. But I mean, I'm going to read through his yearly records: 2-9, 2-10, 9-4. And they went to the Rose Bowl. They lost 4 games and went to the Rose Bowl. I mean, that took the whole confluence of events. 5-7, 3-9, 7-6, 6-6. Like, take out that Rose Bowl year. I mean, like, you could tell me that's Bielema's record if he stays there for 8 years or 7 years, and like, yeah, okay, 34-51. Like, yeah, okay. But I mean, he did not have a winning record in the Big Ten except for that one year. He only finished 500 in the Big Ten once. That was 4-4 in 2010. And I mean, there was like every time I think of the Ron Zook era, I think of his last season where they started out 6-0, ended up 6-6, and he got fired. Started out 6-0, and he's fired like a month and a half later. Like that's the Ron Zook era to me. And it just doesn't. Ron Zook is not a positive mental association with Illinois football to me, and I think they've just done kind of like the poor man's version of that now.
Well, and it took Mike Locksley being the OC there to be able to actually get recruits to Illinois. And so if Bret Bielema doesn't have a Mike Locksley who can bring in guys from, be it Maryland or Florida or wherever, then you're going to be relying on you've got to it's going to be like an Iowa thing where it takes development. It takes your, a 3rd year or 4th year quarterback, and then you lose that person and you kind of start over, and like everything has to happen and everybody has to mature kind of the right time to have one of those years. Now, I still do think that any team in the West can win the West within, a certain span of time. And theoretically, if Iowa back in 2015 was one game away from going to the playoffs, I think anybody can do it. I mean, if Northwestern hadn't lost to Michigan State, in theory, I don't think they would have been in the top 4. But if they beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, I mean, it's going to be hard to deny an undefeated Big Ten champ, especially this year. So I do think it's possible for any of the Big Ten West schools. Sometimes it just depends on who are the East crossovers. I mean, I guess it would always depend on who are those East crossovers.
Yeah, and who do you have non-conference in a normal year? I mean,
Bielema will have nobody. We know that.
Right. That's been Illinois' thing. It's like the hardest team they schedule on non-conference is they schedule Missouri every once in a while, and that's and Missouri is like whatever, they're fine. They're 5th place in the SEC East. Like, yeah, it's fine, but yeah, I mean, there's always like an Illinois State kind of game or a directional Illinois. It seems like so. Yeah, and then sometimes they lose to Eastern Michigan. These things happen. It's
Bielema always had really bad schedules, really easy schedules when he was at Wisconsin, and just ridiculous FCS laden, MAC laden, and I don't know if Barry Alvarez has loaded them up. I don't expect another LSU, or maybe now would be the perfect time to have LSU on there again. But Illinois isn't a team that goes and schedules big games because the other big schools are like, why you?
Any game in Illinois can't schedule big games because big games definitely do not include Illinois. So therefore, it is one of those mathematical impossibilities.
There you go. Anything else, Tom?
I think we have talked far more Illinois football than our listeners deserve. We are deeply sorry for all of this. We're sorry, but anytime Bert comes back into the conference, that merits at least 10, 15 minutes of conversation.
And it's going to be good to see him next August or next July at the Big Ten Media Days. Hoping that there is a Big Ten Media Days next
I was going to say, man, if there is a Big Ten Media Days, I'm going to go skipping through that hotel lobby like you wouldn't believe.
So we can all look forward to that. We do have more questions to get to. We will get that to you in the next show later this week. And so if you've asked some questions and we didn't get to them, we will be getting to them. So thank you for the submissions. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to check out BuckeyeScoop.com. Even though it is a holiday weekend, there is still plenty of stuff going on. Bill Green just dropped a bank blog with a bunch of thoughts on Rajon Davis and 5-star cornerback Jaheim Singletary in 2022, and some thoughts on Clemson, some thoughts on Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, and a bunch of other interesting stuff. So there's all kinds of good stuff there. If you're not yet a member, I would suggest doing that right now. Like as soon as you get done listening to this, just go ahead and sign up, and I promise you will thank me for it. You may not thank me via like a message or actually thank me, but you'd probably thank me if I asked you to. So keep that in mind. It's a good place. Check it out, and we will talk to you guys later.